Hi, mystery readers. It is Mrs. Sardina here for session 11 of our mystery unit. We finished The Absent Author. I know that was super exciting. We're diving into a new mystery book. And as you probably have finished some mystery books at home and are diving into new mysteries, I think we're probably going to be ready to dig even deeper. Now that we know more about how mysteries go and we've learned more about how to be a good reader of mystery books, we're diving in even deeper into the new mysteries we read. So today I want to teach you about something that strong mystery readers do. Mystery readers are always on the lookout for what mystery writers refer to as the red herring. A red herring is a clue that is put into a book on purpose to throw you off track. Not only does it throw you off track, it often throws the detective in the book. It throws them off track too. This term comes from, herring is like a smelly fish, and the term comes from like in the 1800s when someone once used a fish to throw a hound dog off scent. The dog went off smelling the stinky fish instead of following where they were supposed to be going. So that's where the term came from. So a red herring is a clue that a mystery writer might put into a book just to throw you, the reader, and the detective off track a little bit. So I'm thinking about this book that we just finished, The Absent Author, and I want to look back at a few post-it notes that I had in this book, places where I noticed some clues, and I want us to think about them now and see if they were really a clue that helped the detectives to solve the mystery, or were they a red herring, something that threw both the detectives in the book and us kind of off track. So right away, early in the book, I want to read to you this that we thought was a strong clue. This was the letter that Wallace Wallace wrote to Dink at the beginning, right when he was supposed to be coming to the Book Nook. He wrote, "Dear Mr. Duncan, thank you for your kind letter. I'm so impressed that you've read all my books. I have good news. I've made arrangements to come to the Book Nook to sign books. I can use part of my time for research. Thanks for your picture. I'm so happy to finally meet one of my most loyal fans. Short of being kidnapped, nothing will stop me from coming." Right away, that kind of perked up our ears, and it got Dink thinking too. When he didn't show up, they thought he must have been kidnapped. Now, did that end up being true? Not really. This was a bit of a red herring. It made Dink assume that he was probably kidnapped, and we definitely thought he was kidnapped too. We thought someone had taken and kidnapped Wallace Wallace. Let's take a look at another clue and look at it with a new set of eyes, a new set of ears. This is a section about Mr. Paskey at the Book Nook right near the beginning of the story when Wallace Wallace didn't show up for the book signing. At 11:15, Mr. Paskey stood up again. "I don't understand why Wallace Wallace is late," he said. Dink noticed that his bald head was shiny with sweat, and his bow tie was getting a workout. Mr. Paskey smiled bravely, but his eyes were blinking like crazy through his thick glasses. We started right away to get pretty suspicious about Mr. Paskey because we thought when people are nervous, he's pulling on his tie, he's sweating, he's kind of muttering and is blinking his eyes. We thought that's a sign of someone who's awfully nervous. Sometimes people are nervous when they've done something wrong, so we right away thought, I wonder if Mr. Paskey kidnapped Wallace Wallace to keep him all to himself because he's a famous, popular author. Did that end up being a real clue? Or was it a red herring? I think it was a red herring. It threw us and it threw Dink off track a little bit too. Now I want to read you a little bit out of the Whodunit Detective Agency book we just started the other day. This is the Diamond Mystery, and I'm just going to read you a little bit of chapter 4, just a little bit, and I want us to pay close attention to a clue, and I want us to think, do we think this is a real clue, or could it possibly be a red herring? And we don't know, it's just a theory, but let's think about that now that we know that sometimes authors include red herrings in their book on purpose to try to throw us off track a little bit. If the detective solved the mystery right away on the first clue, mysteries wouldn't be very fun to read. So usually there's a couple of red herrings in there to kind of throw the detective off and make a mystery a little bit more exciting. So let's read the start of chapter 4, and let's think about red herrings. Here we go. Chapter 4, The Suspects. In the hallway between the office and the store, Mr. Carrot stopped suddenly and lowered his voice to a whisper. Please help me catch the thief, otherwise I'll be bankrupt soon. Jerry and Maya had no time to reply before Mohammed Carrot walked on. They followed him into the store to meet the other 3 employees, Vivian Leander, Danny Braveheart, and Luke Smith. Mohammed Carrot stood in the middle of the store and introduced everyone. This is Jerry and Maya. They're going to work here for a few days. They will wash the windows, empty the trash, run errands, and help with other odds and ends. Vivian and Luke stepped forward to shake hands and say hello. Vivian was wearing a glittering necklace. Strange, thought Jerry. She's supposed to be short on money. Vivian Leander smiled at Jerry and Maya, but they sensed her mind was on something else. So what do you think about Vivian? Do you think she's a real suspect? Or do you think she's a red herring? Think about it for just a moment. She could be a suspect. She definitely had opportunity. She works in the store, right? Could she have motive if she's short on money? Maybe she took it to try to get some money. Could she be a red herring? It said she was wearing a sparkling necklace. And do you think she would wear some big sparkling necklace if if they knew that they were missing sparkling necklaces? We're at the very beginning of this story. Doesn't that seem a little obvious? I wonder if that was just a little clue to throw us off. What do you think? I'm going to pause the video for a moment. You pause the video too, and you decide whether you think Vivian is a red herring or a legitimate suspect. For your response today, friends, we want you to write about a red herring clue that maybe you read about when you go off to read today. Maybe you'll encounter a red herring clue. Maybe you've already read a red herring clue in the book that you are working in right now, or maybe in a book that you read a little while ago, the mystery that you finished a while ago. Maybe there was a red herring clue there. We would like for you to write to us about a red herring. I got started on writing about the red herring that we just read in the Whodunit mystery. Here's what I wrote so far. I wrote, I think Vivian is a red herring. Now, that's great, but that's just the start. We're getting to be experts in detective books now, so we've got to write more than this. So I need to add a few more things. Now, in your yellow response log, we are on to session, as I mentioned, session 11. This first couple pages of session 11 are going to be stuff that we just kind of talked about during our lesson, but I would like to draw your attention to this little chart in the bottom of the second or third page of this lesson, mystery words. These are the kinds of words that detectives, that mystery readers will use when they write their responses. These are some of the words, the vocabulary words that we'd like to see in your responses. So if I'm going to make this a better response, a stronger response, a deeper response, I need to add a little bit more. I need to add what I'm thinking. So I think I'm going to say, so here's what I wrote for my response using some of these words here, some of these fancy mystery detective words. I wrote, I think Vivian is a red herring. She had a motive and opportunity, but if she was the real thief, she wouldn't be so obvious with the stolen goods. I wonder if she's there to throw the detectives off track. So tell us about a red herring clue, and tell us why you think it's a red herring clue. And you might have some sentences that start with something like I wonder, or I think, or could it be that, because we're not really sure. And I want to show you some places. I use some of those detective words in mine. I use the word red herring. I use the word motive, opportunity. I use the word thief. the stolen goods, and I mentioned the detectives. So those are all words, kind of fancy detective words that we've been talking about, and I use those in my response. Tell us a little bit about some red herring clues that you either read today or some red herring clues that you've maybe read in previous books, and tell us a little bit about why they were red herrings. We can't wait to read about your clues.